make in these storage facilities? Well, consider our next incident in Norwalk, Connecticut. Rex Marina has the exact same floor plan as the Lynn Haven Botel. It's a dry storage with boats that are stored several racks high. But could the sprinkler system evoke another challenge? Let's take a look.
They're a close-knit group of guys, which is the case with every fire department we visit. And in Norwalk, Connecticut, it's no different. Every firefighter here loves their job.
It's very rewarding. My father was a firefighter, and my great-uncle was a firefighter. I'm third generation, so it's a fun job.
I know you must have heard it 1,000 times. The joy of saving a life and helping another person. Most best thing you could ever have, the best feeling.
I think it's like most other fire departments where you have a big family.
We're a department of 132 guys, and we cover about a population of 80,000, and we have 5 stations, and we're a pretty active department.
And being an East Coast town in New England means they cover all the traditional areas and waterfront property as well. That brings a whole new variety of fire hazards. Jet skis, pleasure boats, deep-sea vessels, and marinas. Things for firefighters to consider? Access, stretching enough hose down piers, falling into the water with heavy turnout gear. Then there's the hazmat hazards, burning fiberglass, fuel, diesel fuel. You can see how these fires can have their own unique challenges. While few fire departments will ever face large commercial marina fires, many departments could have incidents in small marinas, lakes, rivers, or waterways in close proximity. So it's never too late to prepare.
We've had a number of fires in marinas. Most of them have been outside, boats burning in the yard or boats in the water.
We've, do pre-fire planning in these marinas, but you can't fathom what happened.
He just called and said he's on his way in. Okay, so you're good? Yeah, I hope so. Let's go.
September 5th, 2001. It started as a typical night at the fire stations in Norwalk. It ended much differently. Someone from across the bay reported smoke coming from the Rex Marine warehouse.
Well, I knew it was a large building. I had been in it, I had seen it, but because the building was sprinklered, I really never expected to have any major problems at that location.
Other firefighters were familiar with the facility as well.
I've been in the building many times, pre-fire planning, and I knew that they had boats on storage racks.
Just like the warehouse in Virginia Beach, this building is a dry storage facility. Here at Rex Marine, the boats are stacked 3 racks high, which is a bit of knowledge that would prove to be crucial that night.
It's a large, it's a metal building. It's approximately 300 by 100 feet, I believe, at least 40 feet high. When people want to take their boat out that day, they call the marina, and the operators have a special tow motor that picks the boat up and puts it in the water from it. And at the end of the day, when they're done, they put the boat back in storage rather than, since they don't have enough dock space, they store it inside for them.
But many of the firefighters weren't familiar with the building and couldn't have predicted what happened that night.
When we got there, our job was to hook up the fire hydrant to get them water going to the building, because we knew there was definitely a fire in the building. As we got there, we gave them water, and we went inside because the chief had the first crew go to the back of the building, and the second crew, which is us, we went to the front. And as we walked in there, the visibility was about maybe 2 feet. I mean, it was just, black as can be.
We're on the rear of the building, and another firefighter, senior firefighter, firefighter DeFinis was there, and we decided we were going to force the door on the back of the building. He and I forced the door, and I believe we discussed with the deputy chief that
my partner and I, Tony Matera, and Captain Taloni were going to enter the building and try to locate where the fire was coming from. The sprinklers were going off. There was obviously still smoke, but we entered the building with thermal imaging camera, and we're trying to locate the fire.
They found the fire. They came back outside. They reported that the fire was much closer to the front of the building, and because the building was so large, we decided to take a hose line into the front of the building rather than the back of the building where engine 5 had initially set up. So the second due engine actually had arrived on scene. We took a hose line off of that, an inch 3/4 line, and they entered the building through the front.
In most situations, firefighters hope a building is sprinklered. Here the marina was sprinklered, but it didn't make the job any easier.
It was controlling the fire, but the sprinklers were filling up the upper boats on the racks with water, and although when they put the boats back into the racks, I believe they take the drain plug out, the amount of water coming in from these sprinklers was much more than was able to drain out.
We went in, located the fire, went back out and reported to the deputy chief that the fire was being contained by a sprinkler system, but the sprinkler system was not putting out the fire because it seemed to be underneath a bunch of boats.
Inside, a two-man crew was advancing in with the hose line.
Myself and firefighter Calvin James, we went in the boat, and he extinguished the fire, and I was advancing line to him, and all of a sudden we just heard this thunderous sound, and it just echoed on a big building like that.
All chaos broke loose. Noise, smoke, yelling. Next thing I knew, I had no movement in my legs.
I'm getting slammed to the ground by something, and my ear was cut completely off. And all of a sudden, the next thing we know, we have no water, and we're trapped in, a tomb of boats.
My aide, who was inside the building with the firefighters on the line, he came out and told me what happened. He said there's been some type of a collapse. I could hear a large noise. And he came out and said there's been a collapse. We can't find a couple of guys. They may be trapped under one of the boats. My first thought was, this is the kind of thing you never hope happens to you, but it's like, oh, I'm gonna lose a couple of firefighters, and I can't even describe the feel. I was sick, basically sick to my stomach.
Firefighters Calvin James and Richard Lozanak were trapped underneath several layers of boats. How did that happen? How did they get out? We'll return to our story in Norwalk, Connecticut in just a moment, but first, the answer to your pop quiz.
Think you know the answer to the quiz? Here it is again. Water supplies at marina fires may include A, municipal water systems, B, tanker or tender shuttles, C, drafting, or D, all of the above. The answer is D, all of the above. Any of these water supplies could be used at a marina fire. Now, back to the story in Norwalk.
We re-entered the building with an engine company, several firefighters and an engine company, and myself and my partner, Tony Matera, went back in with thermal imaging to show them, to try relocate the fire and show them where it was and try to get a plan of attack on how we were going to get to the fire. I believe there was close to a dozen guys in there at one time, and we went in, and the engine company went in to attack the fire, and that's when the collapse occurred. I really didn't know that Calvin and Richard were on the nozzle.
But it was firefighters Calvin James and Richard Lozanak who were trapped underneath racks of boats. But what caused the collapse?
Although sprinklers were helping contain the fire, they were also causing the boats to fill up with water. And this combined with the fact that the fire had weakened some of the steel I-beams, these cross beams that hold these boats in place that they sit on. This allowed the beams to weaken from the heat, and I think the beams started to twist with the added weight of the water in the boats, And at some point, the top rack of in that area, the boats just spilled off the rack. One boat from the top rack pancaked down on the two boats below it, which is what trapped the two firefighters. Another boat spilled off into the middle of the aisle, and narrowly missing a couple of firefighters who were standing in the aisle. They didn't see it. It was still so smoky in there. They said they didn't see anything, but they could feel it go by them, and it actually brushed one firefighter and knocked him to the ground. Unfortunately, none of those firefighters were injured.
But what about firefighters James and Loznak, or Laws, as the guys call him? How would they get out? And what were they thinking and feeling?
Stuck, buried, trapped. Am I going to see my family again? All the norms when you're helpless, because we were helpless. We were trapped, nowhere to go.
I knew we have a good team around us, and they're going to do whatever they can to get us out. And it was just a matter of time of, just trying to keep calm and patient, and hopefully they're going to get us out and hope for the best.
With the instructions of Deputy Chief Larry Riley, firefighter Brian Kilcoyne stepped in to lead the rescue efforts.
It was very important because Brian Kilcoyne listened to me when I explained to him the way the boats were up on top of each other. If you don't listen, you can't help. And by me telling them left or right or stop, then you're doing the most important thing. He did just what he's supposed to do. He stuck right with us. He was there.
So we still had fire, and when I got to the area of the collapse, I yelled into the area, and Calvin told me that he and Laz were buddy breathing off of his air pack, that they were low on air, and there was fire underneath them. So at that point, I had called out to get an air pack, an additional air bottle to those guys. A firefighter from the RIT team, firefighter Allegretta, handed me his air pack, and I slid the air pack into them. And then I also told several officers that were there that Calvin had told me that there was fire underneath them, and they were trying to get another line in position to put out that fire. Their air packs, their pass alarms were going off on their air packs. So it was, a little chaotic.
At that point, although we weren't positive if the fire was completely under control, we decided we needed to shut the sprinkler system down so that we could see what we're doing. So we were able to shut the sprinkler system down, and at that point it really started to clear up, and we could see what we had. And once the smoke cleared, we were able to free the first firefighter James, fairly quickly. And he basically was ambulatory. He walked out on his own, and then we were able to concentrate on getting firefighter Loznak out of the boat.
It took several minutes to get firefighter James out, but firefighter Loznak was still trapped. So Calvin, how did it feel to get out?
Wonderful. Wonderful, but I was also worrying about firefighter Loznak getting out too. Like I said, we don't like to leave anyone behind, ever.
Once firefighter James walked outside on his own, the smoke had cleared, and we could see that Laz was conscious, he was talking, and he was pinned in the boat, but he wasn't seriously injured. It was a load off my mind.
Now, the focus turned to Laws.
At that point, we had actually had plenty of help, and we probably had more than enough people there at that point, and it was just a matter of deciding the best way of lifting the boat that was trapping firefighter Loznak.
The operation to get Laz out was somewhat frustrating, but now the smoke was cleared, the fire was out, the lights were on in the building, and now it was just trying to figure out how he was trapped, because he was unable to move to see his leg was pinned, and he wasn't sure what was pinning his leg. Another senior firefighter, I recall firefighter Bovey and Lieutenant Foley came up to me and climbed up onto the area that I was and had said to me that from the angle that they were, they could see that a pipe looked like a sprinkler pipe was pinning his leg. And that if we got a pry bar down into that area, we might be able to pry up on that pipe, and he might be able to slide his foot out of his boot or slide his leg out of that area and get himself out. And sure enough, that worked. We were lucky. We really got lucky. And everybody went home safe.
Goes to show you, your life could be over in a second. I mean, you know, you don't take a little bit less for granted, I think. You know, and appreciate life a little bit more.
Our preliminary findings was we pinpointed the possible, more probably than not, cause to a trickle charger, which is a battery charger that's built onto the boat. It was installed on a wooden partition near the engine compartment, and it's associated wiring that runs between the wooden partition and another partition, and we believe that's where the fire started. Unfortunately, we all know that sprinklers are great for us in the fire service because they're 98% efficient. In this case, they also were a detriment because the extra water that was applied to the boats from the sprinkler head, which normally discharges about 15 gallons of water a minute, added 8 pounds for every gallon of water. So you can imagine how much water is added to these boats. And the racks obviously weren't designed to hold the extra weight and caused the metal to actually rip on the brackets that held the cross members of the rack together.
I think all the fellows who came to our rescue, all the firefighters in the surrounding areas who were worried about us, I thank them to the fullest, you know, 100%. We're a family. That's what families do.
And for the admirable job firefighter Kilcoyne did that night, he was given the Firefighter of the Year award for Norwalk, Connecticut.
No, I'm not talking about that. I refuse to talk about that. You know what? The biggest gratification I think you get out of something like this is that the guys know that they can count on me and I can count on them. After going through something like this and you're seeing guys trapped in a small department, you know, 130-something guys here, you know, run a 32-man shift. Small department, you got guys that can come together and work together to rescue a couple of your own guys. And they know I would go in for them, and I know these guys would come in and get me out. That's the good gratification. It's not, you know, there's nothing else that I really need. You know, it's a gratifying feeling knowing that, you know, we all come together and we can, you know, the brothers, you know.
So while a sprinkler system was not in place in Virginia Beach, there was one in Norwalk. But as the Connecticut firefighters learned, it doesn't always protect you. As any fire department will tell you, the key is to pre-plan. So what about deep sea vessels and cargo barges that you see along coastline and on major rivers? You can prepare for those